awesome as I wanna be. Awesome as I wanna be. Awesome as I wanna be.
Hello every pony, I am Critical Thought and welcome to my review of The Cart Before the Ponies. This episode has been brought to us by one of the newer writers on the show staff, Ed Valentine. Before this episode, he had been responsible for Flight to the Finish and Three's a Crowd. The former is definitely one of my all-time favorite episodes, while the latter was just okay. Let's hope that Mr. Valentine here isn't starting to degrade in quality after bursting onto the scene in Season 4 with a bang. Will this episode be a return to form, or will the downward slope of Ed's storytelling continue? Let's find out. We start this episode off in the Ponyville schoolhouse, where Cheerilee is getting ready to teach the foals... Wait, there is no way I'm reading this right. Physics? Aren't the foals in the classroom, like, age 9 or 10 on the high end? Why are we trying to teach physics to 10-year-olds?
Why, for participating in the Applewood Derby!
Oh, okay, now I get it. Wait, no I don't. Why do they need to know about physics to build a derby car? I can see giving some basic 101 type education that covers some simple laws of physics, but it sounds like Cheerilee wants to start busting out the formulas like she's in a college-level class. There is no way in hell you got this through the school board, Cheerilee. Just wait until I tell Spoiled Rich about this insanity. Theme. Like a traditional derby race, Cheerilee tells the class that they each have a block of wood waiting for them at Sweet Apple Acres that they will need to convert into a race-ready cart by tomorrow, and that each pony will be allowed one older assistant pony to help them with the process, who will later need to ride in the race with them. Of course, to the shock and surprise of literally 0 people, Applebloom chooses Applejack to help, Sweetie chooses Rarity, and Scoots picks Rainbow Dash. Cheerilee says there will be 3 awards to hand out: Fastest, Most Traditional, and Most Creative. Almost as if it was immediately brought up just to keep me on board after this not-so-subtle plot convenience of there being 1 ribbon for each of the CMC, Mr. Valentine at least tries to subvert our expectations here of which CMC wants to win which ribbon. You would expect Rainbow and Scoots to aim for Fastest, Rarity and Sweetie to want Most Creative, and the Apple Sisters to try for Most Traditional, simply based on their personalities. But that's not what we get here. Instead, Applebloom wants to win the race, Scoots wants to make a creative and crazy float, and Sweetie is enamored with the design of the traditional derby carts. For this concerted effort to break up the predictability of this episode, I will withhold my analysis groan and give a friendly tip of my non-existent hat to you, Mr. Valentine. When the CMC go to ask for help from their older assistant ponies of choice, however, they don't share in the CMC's desire to shake things up this year and want to stick to those predictable stereotypes. Turning predictability into a conflict. I'm intrigued and impressed. Also, apparently Rarity got upstaged in the Derby years ago as a filly by Derpy Hooves and holds a grudge against her. Kind of a weird and off-the-wall anti-ship, but it ain't the worst thing I've ever seen in the show. Once the girls all get to Sweet Apple Acres the next day to start building their carts, the conflict becomes even more apparent as Rarity, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash are obviously trying to live vicariously through the CMC, trying to claim that the ribbons will be theirs. This makes the CMC raise some doubts for a moment that their assistants have their interest at heart. But that doubt is fleeting and they just assume their sisters know what they're doing. While the carts are being built, almost entirely by the older girls, the CMC once again try to bring up what they want their carts to aim for to the older ponies, but their pleas continue to fall upon deaf ears. They even try to just go behind their sisters' backs to realize their visions during a pretty good instrumental score by Will Anderson and Stephen Andrews, but Rarity, AJ, and Rainbow just aren't letting it slide. Once the carts are nearly complete, the CMC reconvene on a nearby hill, and accept that they simply won't be able to build the carts the way they originally wanted to, but they still have some optimism that the race will be fun regardless. However, even that happiness is squashed when the CMC see that their sisters have already taken the driver's seat, and they won't even get a chance to drive them, despite all their other classmates being able to drive their carts. Once the race begins, we get a brand new song by Daniel Ingram entitled Derby Racers. I don't like this song at all. I think I might actually dare to say this is my least liked song in the entire show. The production just feels way too bare bones, and the melodies are just awkward and juvenile. I expect this kind of lazy songwriting from something on the Nick Jr. block, not MLP.
Giddy up, Derby racers! Giddy up, Derby racers! Giddy up, Derby racers! Go, go, go!
At the end of the song, the CMC's carts all end up colliding in an intersection, and it causes a huge multi-cart crash, wrecking pretty much everyone in the race. That's when the CMC finally agree that they've had enough and yell at their sisters for how they've hijacked the Derby.
Well, why didn't you say anything? You've all done the race before. I just figured you knew best. Plus, it's hard to speak up to older ponies.
Oh, I certainly understand that. But you mustn't think older ponies automatically know best.
Wait, what? No, that's not what happened. You tried multiple times to tell them what you wanted and they just didn't listen. Yes, you did just accept the way things were when you weren't getting your way, but this is not on you, and it's certainly not because you failed to ask them to make the carts the way you wanted them. This leads into the moral for this episode. Older people don't always know best. Really? Is that what we're teaching here? Not how trying to live vicariously through your friends and family is wrong, or how you may need to get an outside party involved to make sure your wants and desires are being listened to? Just older people are sometimes not as smart as younger people? What in the hell? First off, while this so-called moral is technically applicable to this episode, I would argue it's not even true in the real world anyway. Sure, there are some things that young people have older people beat on, but the wisdom that elders have over younger people far outweighs the ignorance. Secondly, as I've already hinted at, there were definitely better morals that you could have taught here, even while leaving the episode exactly as is with just a slightly different ending. We then close out this episode with the CMC redesigning their carts the way they wanted them to be for a redo of the Derby. At least AJ, RD, and Rarity look cute in their greaser outfits. Guess that's one positive I can point out with this episode. Don't know if it matters much, but eh. Also, another twist. We don't actually see who wins what award at the end of the episode. I mean, it's certainly implied that the CMC are going to win, but it's never actually shown. So, what did I think of The Cart Before the Ponies? I am really disappointed in Ed Valentine. I mean, I don't understand how a guy who brought me one of my favorite episodes of all time could create an episode this bad. I mean, this isn't like Legend of Everfree bad, but it's about as forgettable of an episode as I can think of off the top of my head. I will give him credit for at least trying to not be predictable and instead flipping that predictability into a meaningful conflict. But that's literally the only positive I can point out here. The rest of this episode felt repetitive, boring, and it even failed at delivering a good moral to overlook all of its shortcomings. The song was just atrocious, and it will not be making it into my MLP music playlist in the near future, or probably ever. I'd rather just ignore this episode, so I'm giving it a skip it rating. Trust me, you won't be missing much of anything. As always, I am Critical Thought, and I will see you all in my next video. Never stop thinking critically.